welcome to the Defy Report. I'm your host, Danial Qureshi, and I have Farrukh Siddiqui, our co-host of the Defy Report. So Farrukh, just how are things going with you?
Things are going fine, Daniel, but the student loan landscape is really messed up. And today we'll talk about this a little bit today. But go
Okay.
ahead, you can
You
get
you
into
gave me a
it.
little bit of a teaser before the show, so I'm gonna hold off and wait for those morsels of information to come later and for the audience. Okay, so let's go ahead and recap real quick. There's nothing really new in terms of the news. This has been a slow week in the news for student loans in general. Just to recap for last week, we spoke a little bit about the labor reports where they were not published. Inflation reports were also not published. We still haven't received anything new on that. The OBB bill and the implications of Parent Plus loans and a couple other things. Other than that, defaults are still remaining high. The economy is still overall very slow. But there were at least one interesting article from the Financial Times that was released, um, talking a little bit more about housing, which is such a critical thing for so many people who are looking for homes, whether they're Gen Z, millennial, you name it. Regardless of age group, people are looking for homes. Um, so let's go ahead and deep dive into it a little bit. And just for the audience, what is it really about? Basically, like I'd mentioned before, Gen Z is unable to buy homes. And one of the key things that we noticed out of that particular article was that housing prices from 2000 all the way to 2025 have been increasing, obviously. But the income that's needed to be able to afford that home has actually increased, or so to speak. You need more money to buy that same house. Um, and in the United States, at least, currently from 2020 to now, what we're noticing is that it's almost four times, meaning that in 2000, it was almost a 1 to 1 to 1 to 2 ratio, or where the price was maybe $200,000 and your income was 100,000. Now the price of a home would be around $600,000 and your income is now around like 150, as an example. So we're noticing that this trend, and it's widening with time, which is concerning, because that means it takes more dollars, more of your hard-earned money as an American or a British citizen or any other kind of citizen for that matter, to be able to buy a home. And especially as a younger person where your earning capacity is not so high. Um, so I just want to go ahead and get your take on this, Farooq. What are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, and something else is driving me crazy looking at this chart, right? It's just crazy stuff because going back, to the I guess the mid 90s, only about maybe less than 10% of homes were where the gap between home price and income was 4x. Now it's about 50%. Like 50% of the properties out there, when you're looking at um, the ratio between home price and income, it's like a 4x ratio.
Hmm.
That's crazy. I mean, you're talking about half the people out there need to come up with that much money, which means they have to come up with a significant down payment as well, to be able to get into that house. And so often I hear, the older generations kind of talking about how these younger generations are staying in their parents' houses longer or living with their parents longer or borrowing money from their parents or getting their parents to help them buy a house. Really? No, no, duh. I mean, look at the stats. Like if the parents don't help out, how are these people going to get a house in the first place?
It's going to be very difficult. I mean, if you really think about it, I'm betting the parents are also squeezed because they either have only Social Security income or they're in the later years of their life. They're trying to taper out and, not put too much stress on themselves. And now they have the burden of, taking care of their child, even adult in getting towards retirement age.
Yeah, and I don't, and to be clear, the statistics are for U.S. metro areas, so obviously areas around big cities. Um, And it's no wonder, right, that especially after COVID and with all of this boon in, hybrid work or working from home, virtual work, people are moving to different parts of the country. Like I remember, I moved to Florida in Tampa in 2014, and it was quite affordable, to buy a house in Tampa. But then after COVID, oh my
Oh yeah.
goodness, things changed
It's
significantly.
it's so crazy. I remember I was buying my home here in Georgia, $330,000, and now it's worth around 600. So it's doubled in price almost. And isn't that insane?
Like less than 10 years?
Yeah, that's less than 10 years. I bought it in August of 2017. So I was fortunate and lucky enough to buy it at a time when pricing wasn't so crazy high, although I thought I was stretching my dollar at that time. But now I look at it and I'm like, if with my regular income, I don't think I could afford a $600,000 home.
Yeah, in fact, again, looking at the statistic and the way the graph plays out, at that time when you were buying, the numbers had gotten better. It was easier. So you're right, yeah, 100%. But even like during the financial crisis time, I remember when the boom was happening in '05, when interest rates were very low and people were just buying all kinds of housing prices were going way up. It was again difficult. It was difficult, not as bad as it is now, but it was still difficult. But then it got a little bit better after the housing crisis. So your timing was ended up being good, and now it's the trend is like going in the opposite direction. So it's simply getting harder and harder. In
Uh,
fact, less than 3x back in the same time period, the mid 90s, I would say about 70% of properties were less than 3x.
Yeah,
Now that number is down to like around 10%.
man.
So no matter how you look at it, it's just bad. And I know we're not in the UK, but looking at the UK stats,
Yeah, it feels
it's
horrible.
mind-boggling how bad the UK, especially in London, right? It's
Yeah.
practically unaffordable for young people to buy properties in London.
I think that's also a systemic governmental issue too, right? I mean, the government of the UK has been fundamentally different through Brexit and through Tony Blair and some of the other people who've been running the government, and even Boris Johnson's era. It's just it's so alarming that they don't care for their future generation enough to help them in some way, shape, or form, or control the currency to an extent, because a lot of countries across the world, they're using fiat currencies and they're printing money left and right, devaluing their currency left and right.
Yep.
So that's causing issues on one end. And then on the flip side, during COVID, obviously, we had wonderful interest rates, right? 2.5% for a 15-year, 3.5% or 3% for a 30-year. Come on, you're never gonna see that again,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Or very, 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 that's a future dream at this point. Um,
So
so
what I would also like, I remember one of my old bosses told me used to say that compensation drives behavior. But
mhm,
in this case, it's the lack of compensation or the limited compensation that's driving behavior. But if you look at the stats, again, this article it shows how, now more people believe, I think it's probably around 30%, that they're always going to be renting. Like
yeah,
number of people that think they're always going to be renting is just going up. And it's not because people don't want to buy a house. People that do want to buy a house, I think over 60% of people simply don't have the savings to afford the down payment.
that's true. And other thing is, right, like what I was mentioning before, right, where the dollar is continuously devaluing. Like I'll give a good example. 100,000 salary in 2017 is now equivalent to 144,000, 150,000 today. In 7 years' time.
Wow.
So that means that my buying power for my $1 that I had in 2017 was equivalent to 1.5x today. But if I didn't buy anything and I let it sit there, it devalued and it was worth 50 cents today, or close to 50 cents. Not exactly, but very close, 50, 60 something cents, something like that. So it's like that means it takes more dollars for me to generate as an individual to then go buy that new home.
Yes.
So it's also eroding my buying power, right? And Gen Z can feel this left and right because any job that they look for, if you look at most of the labor statistics, you'll see that most of the jobs are in bottom tier bracket incomes. We're talking about 10 to about $25 an hour. That's where a majority of the jobs are. They're not in the high paying fields.
No. And coming back to behavior, Danielle, I mean, what this article is also talking about is how Gen Z specifically is behaving more very risky when it comes to
Oh
finance,
yeah.
right?
Yeah, they're
Because
starting to invest in
if they have this attitude that they can't buy a house anyway,
yeah,
so now they're actually going in the other direction instead of being conservative and saving for money because now it's almost hopelessness, right? That we can't save for a house, we can't buy a house. So now they're going towards crypto and more riskier investments and other behavior that's actually potentially going to make the situation even worse, right?
yeah,
So that's another aspect. And if you think about it, yeah, if you can afford to buy a house, if you feel like you can save to buy a house, then you're gonna behave in a more conservative way. You're going to try to save money. You're going to try to be on this path towards home ownership. But if you don't feel that way, then yeah, I can see why people are going to start being risky. And again, recently I was talking to an investor, and he actually was talking about this. Oh, look at these, because I was talking about with Defynance, we really want to solve the problem for Gen Z and millennials, right? Because we feel like student debt is really hitting those two generations more than any other generation before. And but he was talking about how, oh, look at Gen Zs are so risky, their behavior is so risky and so on. Are they really somebody you want to invest in? But people don't look at the realities. Why are they behaving that way?
yeah,
There's a reason, and not that all of them are. We don't want to paint a broad brush here and saying all Gen Z are like this. But for the ones that may be going in this direction, there's a reason for it. There's a rationale for it. Is because the system is failing them,
yeah.
and they're responding by trying to figure out ways to accelerate saving money, accelerate getting a return on their investments to be able to, guess what, buy that house. But unfortunately, they're taking more risks to do it, which could end up backfiring.
Absolutely. I mean, like if you think about it, TikTok, Instagram, you name it, a lot of people are talking about investing in stocks or forex or even margin trading, and that's even more dangerous. Options trading and even crypto, right? Because if you start investing in meme coins, you'll either it'll go to the moon or straight down into the toilet.
Exactly.
Um, so I think what's our key takeaway from this article, though? I think for me, it's more so that Gen Z is actively investing in riskier investments. They're unable to buy homes. And I feel that there will be a moment in time in the future where they would actually revolt in some ways, shape, or form, right? Because, like, hey, the economy isn't for me. So either I can move, I can get out of this country, I can find another better spot to live where things will be better for me, or I stick it out here because my family members are here. That's one other option. Another option is move into another city or state where things are substantially cheaper, right? So those are my key takeaways from this, and it's alarming to see that not just the US, but the UK and other developed markets are facing similar issues.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, at least UK is clearly worse than the US, but the US is heading in that wrong direction very fast, for sure.
All right, so how about this? Let's go ahead and start shifting to this case study, this interesting case study that you started to tell me a little bit more about before we started. So walk me through this case study that you had in mind.
Yeah, no, as you know, we with the finance, we are refinancing student loans with income share agreements, right? ISAs. And we, of course, get applications from people that want to refinance. And you can imagine so many people want a better solution than student debt. They actually want to get out of debt. They want to um, be in a position where they can actually get life started by thinking about even buying a house, starting a family, saving for retirement, and many of the things that people have always done in this country. But unfortunately, with student debt, more and more people are not able to do. So I was talking to someone literally yesterday. So this is fresh in my mind, right? And it just blew my mind yesterday listening to this. When they submitted their application, okay, $55,000 student debt, the salary is more than that, master's degree, started off on a good career track, everything looks good. But then when I dug deeper, Turns out that 55,000 student debt is with a private lender, and they are being charged 13.9% interest rate.
Oof.
13.9% interest rate.
What
And
was the monthly payment on that?
the monthly payment was $700, but the reality was it was 700 because the payment term was 20 years. 20 years at $700 is what this person is dealing with. And student debt was, I mean, interest is already compounded because they did a master's degree and so on. So, they use this debt to pay that off. So now student debt is at 55 now and it's only going up. Um, and we were able to give them a quote for an income share agreement. The payment came out to about 600, I think $20, so about $80 less, but with a 10-year term.
Wow. So
Means half the time they'll be done with this. And with an income share agreement, there is no way the term can be extended. It is locked in. 10 years means 10 years. In fact, it can only get better by making extra payments or doing a buyout or something. You can finish it sooner, not get it go longer. 10 years means 10 years. So that is, and they were ecstatic. I couldn't believe it. And hopefully we'll be able to work with them and get them out of this predatory student loan. That's the only way I can put it.
sure. I mean, that's so alarming. I mean, if you think about it, like I was just doing the math in my head. I'm thinking, what, $700 at 20 years, it's $168,000.
Yeah, more than
Oh,
100,000 interest, which means interest is 2x of the balance, starting
that
balance.
is insane. That is absolutely insane.
Yeah.
Wow.
So that's what's going on out there, right? No wonder people can't afford to buy a house. No wonder people can't save for retirement. No wonder they're dealing with all this anxiety because now imagine the stress of a $700 payment for 20 years. $700 payment. You can get a studio apartment in some places for 700 bucks. You can get a really nice car, like a really nice car for a $700 payment, for example,
Possible. Assuming that your credit is good, right?
assuming your
And that
credit is good.
and
So
you get a good rate from a credit union, maybe. Um,
And imagine if $700 is invested every month. Imagine what that can turn into after 20
yeah.
years.
Even the $80 differential, right? Invested over 10 years or 120 months probably would generate them a pretty decent sizable check at the end of it, right?
Absolutely. So, Daniel, what this article and talking to this potential customer is showing me more and more is that the system is more broken than we ever, that even I have imagined. And even though I've been seeing so many of these stories, but it's really changing the way people live, changing the way people behave, changing the
Mm.
way people invest. It's just catastrophic potentially is what's going on right now. And I think from a Defynance perspective, we have a solution that we are actually looking to expand even more, and we'll talk about that more as time comes. But I think we're onto something, and I think we're hopefully going to tackle this problem in a way which will really empower financial freedom for a lot of people.
Absolutely. All right. Anything else?
No, because I think I should just stop ranting at this point in time. But we'll
All right. So for those of you who are watching, the link to the Financial Times article will be down below in the comments section. Also, links to all of our socials will be down below. Please do subscribe. Every subscription helps. It gets us the ability to get interesting guests and more interesting stories that we can then cover and then talk to you as individuals as well and bring you onto the show. Um, I guess that's all I have on my plate. I'll be looking forward to seeing you guys in the next DeFi report.
All right, awesome. Thank you, Danielle. See you all next time.